Hey, you guys. So it's Saturday, November 19th. And I wanted to come to you guys and slowly but surely introduce myself a little bit more because, okay, now that you know that I'm weird, we got that out the way. And then I got like these like weird alien birth defects, that's out the way. Now I kind of wanted to get into talking about what my life is about. Who are you and why in the hell should we watch you? So, I guess the overlay of my life is that I'm a mom and I am a wife and a Navy wife. So, in today's video, I'm going to discuss with you the fact that I'm a Navy wife. I'll go into being a mom in a whole nother video or four because that's a whole nother set of conversations. So, but for today, I'm going to focus in on I'm a Navy wife. So I have been a Navy wife for now a little bit over 18 months. I've been a wife for almost 2 years as of this month. My anniversary is on the 23rd. Woo, we doing it because child, there's times I didn't know if we was gonna be doing it. And don't get me wrong, I love my husband. I love my husband. I love my husband. It's just marriage is a lot different than what you ever thought it was going to be. Even if you grew up in a home where you were married, or there were your parents were married, rather. Even if you were around married couples, even if you had that one set of grandparents who've been married for 30, 40, 50, 60 years, your own marriage is different from any other marriage that you thought you knew about. And it is literally a job that is on call and that you don't ever get to clock out for. Because at the drop of a dime, anything can happen. Anyone can feel any kind of way, and then factor in that life happens and then how you all have to deal with that. So, but specifically, all of that, and then add a layer of being a Navy wife on top of that. So, let's take it back to 2017. So after me and my husband got married, it was all cool and everything. We were all, super in love. And then I remember, okay, so we didn't actually have a wedding. Let me back that up. I'm not going to go into the whole synopsis because it's a whole other video, but we didn't have a wedding. We just went to the courthouse and handled our situation. If you see a little glare or whatever, like back and forth in the camera, it's because I'm watching TV in the background. Bob's Burgers is on, and for some reason, like I was gonna turn it off, but Bob's Burgers makes me feel a little bit more comfortable in talking to a camera versus just me sitting in a silent room. So I have no editing ability. I don't know what I'm gonna ever do about that. I have no intro, no outro. I haven't gotten that far in my YouTube editing, videoing, vlogging journey yet. And I thought about doing all the significant research beforehand, but I was like, you know what? I'm just going to come and give you me because I feel like that's the best way to get to know me. All those other little tricks and, commodities will come, but in order for me to really be me, I can't even really be on a type of time yet. So, anywho, we did not go and we haven't had a wedding yet. We are at this time hoping that we can go ahead and have the wedding of our dreams, so to speak, when we get to our 5-year mark. And that's not because we don't know whether or not it's going to last or what have you. It's more so about financial. We want to get to a place where we are able to go ahead and have that type of ceremony, not have it be half-assed, let it be something that we really want, but then not have to compromise having a ceremony and not having a means of livelihood, or having a means of livelihood, but then having a ceremony that is, half baked just because we want to say that we had an actual wedding. So we want to wait until we can have the wedding of our dreams. So we, of course, went to the courthouse, just got a marriage license. Where we both were at the time, spiritually and emotionally, and what we had been through recently prior to getting married, individually and collectively, we were at a place where we wanted to do right under God, basically. And we had tried everything else, and those things had clearly failed, and we wanted to go about this the right way. We knew in order for change to take place in our lives and for the situation to be blessed, um, we needed to go about it the right way. So we literally just like we dived. That was my dive. I'm sorry. That was the best dive I could give you, without like getting up and looking like a whale. Um, we literally just jumped. I could have just said jumped, right? Instead of saying dived. I don't know why I reached for that word so hard. We literally jumped right in, and I believe I'm sure of it. We got the marriage license on a Thursday because I called my bank and then got my funds available on Thursday instead of Friday. And so I think I got off work early on that day. We went to the courthouse, did it, but we're in Florida where I'm from. Um, you have to go ahead and get the marriage license. Then you cannot have it signed off on basically for 72 hours. If you have the license signed off on before the 72-hour period, basically 3 days. Let's just say 3 days, not 72 hours. But if you have the marriage license and it's signed before the 3-day window, then it's null and void. So um, I think we got it. It was like Thursday the 19th, if I'm not mistaken. And then on the 22nd, we had it signed, which is 3 days later. So that was on the Sunday that we had it signed. We literally just met up with, went on Craigslist, found a girl that so she was a notary, and I was a notary too actually at the time, but of course I could not notarize my own marriage license. Fraud. um so girl was like, hey, I'm a notary. I think she charged like $25, which was a bit much to just sign a piece of paper, but hey, that's the thing about being a notary. You can charge what you want to, and people can either pay or not pay it. How bad do you want this notary, um or sorry, how bad you want this notarized document? So, but for something as big as that, we didn't give a damn about $25. We wanted our marriage to be official. So we went to church. I really said all that to lead up to this point. We went to church, and it was great and everything. We felt, obviously a really, really different way because we knew we had just gotten our marriage license a couple of days ago. So this is our first time in church since then. And we felt really proud to be there because of the decision that we made. We left church and then met up with her at the mall. She signed it. Boom. So we actually celebrate on the 22nd/23rd because she signed the certificate on the 22nd, but that was a Sunday. So we had to go the next day on Monday, take the certificate back to the courthouse, and then have the certificate recorded, which was on the 23rd. So we still kind of don't know for sure, like, what our anniversary is. So we kind of celebrate both days. Um, I thought about looking it up. I just haven't done it yet. So yeah, 22nd, 23rd. Cool. So anyways, back to that Sunday. I don't know if this is before or after we had gone to the mall. Probably after, because I'm sure we were on a high at that point, knowing that we were like married. And he basically told me, he was like, babe, I'm thinking about going into the Navy. And I'm like, because we didn't have any prior conversation to that. Now, he did have another retired Navy serviceman, try to influence him to do that. But from what I understood, the conversations that we had, and from what, the impression I got from him, that wasn't anything that he was even considering, like, for real. Like, anything that we talked about, it was like, okay, he was just listening to the older guy to be respectful, but kind of blowing him off at the same time. So it was more than a surprise when he came to me with that, and I really didn't know what to think because, again, we didn't really have a plan as far as, what the next steps were going to be in any regard. All we knew was that we were in love and we wanted to be married, and we did. But I I didn't think the plans were going to be in the Navy. And again, he didn't say anything prior to. So for anybody who will ever watch this video in the future, including some of my in-laws, yeah, I did not know that my husband wanted or was even considering the Navy before we got married. He did not bring that up to me at all until after we had gotten married. So no, I didn't marry him because he wanted to go in the Navy. I didn't marry him because he was in the Navy. We were already married before the thought came to be put out on the table. Maybe it came to fruition in his mind, but it had not been spewed out of his mouth into my thoughts. So we purely did that based off of love and faith, basically, because we didn't have anything to offer one another, literally, but one another. And we'll talk about that more in another video, because I had talked to him maybe last night before last, and we pretty much agreed that we're probably going to do some of these videos together. One of those videos in the future will be basically how we met, because it is a trip, like, and back, and then go drop off your bags, pick up new bags, and then catch another flight, and then take another trip. Like, that's what our how we met story is. But we'll save that for the joint video between us, because he's funny, because he'll be like, he don't really like people, but he's really charismatic, and he's a character. I think, isn't it the same thing as being charismatic? I don't know what kind of rock I'm smoking today. I don't smoke rocks. I don't smoke nothing at all. Yeah, I don't know why. I think I'm still nervous about doing this, so my words are getting jumbled. I'm trying to over articulate and over analyze and over do it, basically. So from the time that he made the decision, and again, this would have had to have been the time basically when he told me he had already made the decision that this is something that he wanted to do. And I guess he just wanted to know that I would support him. And I mean, you fresh off the block with my husband, so what I'm gonna do? Like, no, I'm not gonna support you. No, you don't deserve to pursue this. In his mind, he felt like this was the best way to go ahead and make a way for himself and for his family to be able to take care of all of us. I was working a full-time job. I was working a full-time job prior to getting married. Okay? Like, prior to, like, I didn't just get that job like that year. I had been on my job. Okay? All right. So I was working a full-time job, and that job was supporting us at the time, but obviously it was a strain, because when, we decided to get together, it was just me and the child that I have. So yes, I was a single mother prior to him. And so that job was kind of barely enough for us. And then when he came along, that job had to be split to take care of 3 people. So we went ahead and decided we were going to go ahead and see what it was about. So basically made the decision to go to the recruiter's office. And there was a recruiter's office relatively close to my job. I think he dropped me off to work, because of course we only had one car, which was what he was doing anyways. And then he left that morning, and then had gone up to the recruiter's office to see what it was hitting for, basically. And he spoke with a gentleman, and this particular recruiter is the best, 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 best recruiter in all the land. Just could not have asked for a better person as an introduction and representation of the Navy. So shout out to Wendell Lawson, who is still currently a recruiter in Jacksonville, Florida. I think at the time he might have been a first-class petty officer, but I wouldn't be surprised if he has, heavily and highly been promoted since then, because he would deserve all the promotions. So that particular recruiter, worked with him firsthand. He was very easygoing, very understanding, was able to explain things in a very layman terms way, was able to keep it very honest and very real, could relate to our situation, because he also, was married and had a child, and was just really understanding. And my husband isn't, again, like, It takes a lot for him to decide that he is going to be open with someone in the capacity of like telling them his past and the things that he's been through, because it's not something that he like. I'm an open book, right? Like I'm obviously here talking about it to the world, but my husband's not that way, and I imagine most men are not that way. So you really got to be somebody who he deems to be significant or feels comfortable with in order for him to share the things that he's been through, which he did with um, the recruiter that he had, and I think he probably shared mutual experiences. And although the Navy's policy, is that you can't have any fraternization, that's not just male to female, it's male to male. Like basically, you cannot make a homeboy out of your recruiter. In that process that you're going through, like you literally have to sign off on documents understanding and affirming that you're not going to have a personal relationship with your recruiter. So your recruiter can like come and check on you and make sure that you're okay and that you can continue to move forward in the recruiting process. It may stop home for home visits to see what's going on there. But as far as like, texting, calling, hanging out for things outside of the scope of being recruited, that's not anything that's allowed for a significant period of time in the Navy, period. And that is on a recruiter to recruitee standpoint. So it's not just one-sided. But obviously the recruiter knows that already, but the person who's being recruited has to sign up on those documents, basically affirming that they will abide by that. So, yeah, that would have been from the time, okay, so the 23rd was a Sunday. So what I do remember, fast forward a little bit, is on February 2nd, which was a day that I'm really good at like remembering the dates that things actually happened, and I'm good at remembering social security numbers, so like numbers, period, I guess, particularly socials. So on February 2nd, anybody who's ever been associated with, recruiting and going to the service, there's a thing called MIPS, basically, and it's this really huge facility that anyone who's going to join into any of the armed services, not just the Navy, has to go to basically, it's like a recruiting central. You have to pass all these different tests and physicals and examinations and all of that, and basically the first phase of that is finding out if you're recruiting material. You've explained that you want to be recruited. They've explained to you what enlisting in the Navy would be about. And now they can see whether or not you're, enlistment material. So that is what he had to go through. And, they check you everything down to the rooted to the tutor, basically. If one of your balls hangs lower than the other, then they're going to need to know that. Every tattoo, they need to know where it is, what it says. So very meticulous, like very, very meticulous as you can possibly get, basically. Um, Health conditions, hell, STDs. If you have that, those are things they need to know, because depending on what you have, you may or may not be able to enlist. So they are super serious about it. So at the time, as it was being explained to him, as it was being explained to him, he decided that he wanted to be what they call a hospital corpsman. And the spelling of it looks like corpsman, which kind of throws you off. But it's pronounced corpsman. And long story short, it's basically a military nurse. And, you could be a nurse or a medical assistant in different capacities. Because prior to him deciding he wanted to join the Navy, he had gone to school for some radiology, and that was what he was interested in. And he was also interested in becoming an ENT. So, excuse me, an EMT, not an ENT, not ear, nose, throat. I'm gonna get better, y'all. But an EMT, but he was just really interested in the medical field, but not to the capacity of wanting to become a doctor or anything like that. So that was what he wanted to do, and at the time there weren't any openings or vacancies for that particular slot. So he went into what they refer to as the program. And the DEP program is a delayed entry program, basically. So for individuals who are waiting for their rate to become available, the rate basically is the position that they want, then they will go into that program. And in that time frame, they're basically being conditioned and monitored into or monitored on a routine basis where they have to show up every week and do like physical training, things of that nature. They have to make sure that you haven't done any drugs or anything like that. And this is not like a detention program. It's literally a program where there are X amount of dudes who are in holding in the recruiting process, waiting for the rate that they're trying to enlist for to become available. So it wasn't just him. There was a good amount of guys from all different walks of life. And he was in that program longer than what it was expected, because we were told one preliminary date, like, okay, well, April maybe when he goes. And we were kind of freaking out, like, oh my gosh, you can leave as early as April. And April came around, and basically they were like, the position that was available was down between you and somebody else or something like that, and they gave it to the other person. And it wasn't like, them picking the other guy over him. It was basically like a lottery. Stick your hand in the pot. Oh, we pulled this name and it wasn't you. Okay, cool. So as time went on, it didn't seem like that position was becoming available. And then his recruiter reached out to him and was like, listen, here's a couple other options that we have right now as far as different rates. I want to explain them to you and see if there's either one of these would be rates that you might be interested in instead of a hospital corpsman. Like, are you like gung-ho on being a hospital corpsman, or are you open to doing something else? So I forget what the other rate was, but the rate that was also explained to him as an option at the time was a Master at Arms, or for short, an MA. And in layman's terms, because we really didn't know a whole lot about it then, but obviously we know now that it is basically what they call security forces. But layman terms, military police. So we obviously didn't know anything about it to consider that, but once my husband considered it, and I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that he was also ready to get the process started. He was not ready to leave us by any means of a stretch. That was the part that's really difficult, but we also knew the longer we delayed the process, the longer it would be before we could get started. And based on our living arrangements at the time, we needed that to change quickly. But I'll go into all of that on a whole other video, because it's a whole other video. So based on our arrangements at the time, we needed to get things going at as soon as possible financially. So he went ahead and was like, all right, I'm going to go ahead and do the MA thing. At the time, is what we knew. And he was set to, at that point, go ahead and ship out on July 5th of 2017. So we knew that date, was pretty much going to stick at that point, which made us all the more nervous. So we started trying to mentally prepare, but it's one of those things you really, truly cannot mentally prepare for. So I'm sure I'm missing, other steps in the process, but I'm just trying to kind of give you guys the outline of it, because if I went through every single step, we would be here until tomorrow on a video. And I know y'all ain't got the type of patience, and I ain't got the type of time. So, I mean, I actually do have the time, but yeah. So I know y'all don't have that patience, and I don't want you to cut my video off because you no longer care. So, interestingly, well, no, not interestingly enough. I guess it is interestingly enough because it happened to fall on July 4th, which obviously is Independence Day, which was the day before he had to go ahead and be shipped out. And so a part of the process of the Navy is that you have to report very, 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 very early on the day that you're going to be sworn in and shipped out to MEPS again for your last round of basically final training, not training, but final examinations and signing off on documents and all that, making sure that at the last minute, the last hour, you are cleared in every way to be shipped out, because the Navy is footing the bill for everything that's about to happen to you from this point forward, until you start to get paid. And they want to make sure that they're not out here throwing their money away as best as they possibly can. So with that, you to ensure that you're not showing up late to MEPS, they require that you report to a designated hotel that your recruiter would have already informed you of at a designated time. You have to be at that hotel in where you're supposed to go. Oh my gosh, my mom is calling. Yeah, can't do that right now. I'm gonna answer it, but I'm gonna tell her to call her back. So y'all just don't judge. Hello.
Hey.
Hey, mom. You got a little while I can call you back?
Yeah.
Okay.
You always have time for my baby, so just call me back whenever you get to
Oh,
it.
mom. Yeah, it won't be long. I'm doing a YouTube video. I'm recording right now. So.
Okay.
Yep, you're gonna be on the internet. You know, release your voice because it's live. So.
My voice.
Uh-huh. You on speaker. Mm-hmm. That's my mom, y'all.
Right.
It's my mom. That's my mom.
Okay.
So I'm gonna call you back in a little bit when I get finished recording the video. So yeah.
Okay. All right, baby.
Okay, love you.
I'll wait to hear from you. Love you too.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Child, we just want to go ahead and thank the Lord for the relationship that me and my mom have at this time, because it was not always so. And when I mean not always so, I mean not always so within the past year and a half. Like prior to the past year and a half, it wasn't so at all. Like I was literally still in the twilight zone of, like, do I really need to go ahead and get in touch with the hospital to see if I was switched at birth type situation, because me and this lady could not relate for nothing. But again, another video, another day. So yeah, so back to July 4th. So they require you to be at a designated hotel at a designated time and be turned in to the hotel, like turned in. And you have your bag with you, whatever bag that you're going to take to MEPS, and that's going to end up with you going to training. That is going to be the bag that you bring. And they've already told you what particular items you can bring and not bring. So it's minimal. And of course, even though you may have friends and family, including spouses, you cannot allow, or they won't allow your spouse or significant other or kid, friend, nobody to stay in that hotel with you. They drop you off at the front door. Love you. Oh my gosh, I'll see you in the morning. This is getting so real. I'll call you before I go to bed. That's it. Because in actuality, going into their hotel room, they're not going to be alone 9 times out of 10. So obviously, in the average hotel room, unless you request a king size bed, the standard hotel room has, at least 2 double beds. Both of those beds are being utilized. So there's typically 2 recruits to a room. So, I don't know why I said recruitee earlier. I was really reaching. Recruits to a room. And I'm sure that's kind of to ensure that one person holds the other person accountable. Nothing can be going on that they can't question the person about. I'm sure the Navy has their reasons for that. But that was really difficult because, I knew that was the last, like, July 3rd was the last night we were going to spend together. And then July 4th, I had to go home and go to sleep without my husband. And that was the beginning of many nights that I was going to have to go to sleep without my husband. Like, there was no man in the house anymore. Our apartment became really quiet really fast. I reverted back to being a single mom again, and that was really difficult on me and our daughter. So um, they had to be there really early as far as MEPS, probably like 5:30 in the morning to start their testing. But we, as far as friends and family were concerned, weren't allowed to be there until like 8:30, maybe 9 o'clock. Um, and so you get there, there's still a bunch of hurry up and wait, because everybody's still sitting and waiting. And then probably between 11, 12 ish, they get started with the ceremony. And there's basically a swearing in ceremony that they allow the family and friends to go ahead and witness and take pictures and video. But they're basically swearing in under oath that they're about to, defend the Constitution, the United States of America, so on and so forth. I don't know what the spiel is. I'm not a recruit, but I was there. I was there really supporting him, really crying, because I knew that this was as real as it was going to get. And I was going to leave here today, and I wasn't going to see my husband again for at least in the next 2 months. Like, when we left, I was going to have to walk away without him, and he was going in a completely separate direction. And not only was I not going to see him, but the communication, like, this was the last of it. And once they're at MEPS from that morning, even when you see them, there's not a whole lot of communication you can have with them. After they've sworn in, they give you some time to take pictures with your recruit, and all of that, and to hug them and have a conversation. But that doesn't last any longer than about 10, maybe 15 minutes, because at that point they're like, okay, the swearing in ceremony is over. We're now taking the recruits for them to have lunch. And once they have lunch, they're going to go ahead and be headed to the airport. So this is where your train stops here, family and friends. Y'all can hit it after this. So that was extremely difficult, and I cried my eyes out. I'm surprised. I cried so many tears. I'm surprised I didn't swim out of MEPS to the car. Um, so for the Navy, and I can't speak for other branches because I just don't know. But for the Navy, the training facility for new recruits in boot camp is going to be in Great Lakes, Illinois. The interesting thing about that is where my husband is from, basically. My husband, anyone who is familiar with the Chicagoland area knows that Chicago is like, okay, the big meat and potatoes, but there are other little smaller subsidiaries and cities around there. And so my husband was from the area, basically. So as far as the household that he grew up in, and where his parents live, was probably about 30 minutes, if that, from where the actual RTC is. So Basic Recruit Training Command, I think that's what that stands for. So Great Lakes is the boot camp, basically, for the Navy. And they, from what I understand, again, after they ate lunch or whatever, they got everybody gathered up for whoever was going to be going on that trip. And then they get taken by either bus or van to the airport in the city where we are from. And then they are catching their flight to, um, I believe they might have flown into O'Hare. Yeah, they did fly into O'Hare. And then from O'Hare, they have whatever time that they had to wait. And then there was, other buses come and pick them up from RTC. And at that point, they were meeting drill sergeants. And from the moment that the drill sergeants, got them and put them on the bus, that was basically the beginning of boot camp. Um, so all this time, you're not allowed to hear from your recruit at all. Your recruit is allowed to make one phone call once they've reached RTC. And that phone call came in to me probably about 11 or 12 at night. And mind you, from being in North Florida to being in Chicago, or the greater area of Chicago, and the Great Lakes, which is outside of Chicago, basically there's an hour difference as far as time is concerned. So his call probably came into me like around 11:30 at night. And they only have about 60 seconds to say whatever they're going to say to you, and let you know that the purpose of the call is to let you know that they've arrived safe and sound. They are in Great Lakes, and that they are going to be sending home everything that they brought and wore, to boot camp. Everything. Like they're sending home everything with the exception of the little personal items that they're allowed to keep, and it's very minimal. Like they're allowed to keep their wallet. They're allowed to keep a small notepad of numbers and addresses, a couple of photos, and if they wear glasses, or certain medications, things like that. But nothing else. Like that's the cell phone they're calling you on is being sent back home. The clothes that they wore is being sent back home, down to their underwear is being sent back home. Um, Whatever book bag that they had their belongings in, all that's being sent back home in a box, and they let you know that you can expect that package to come home within the next 2 to 3 weeks. And whatever sentiments they're going to give you, as far as I'm gonna miss you, I love you, whatever, all that needs to be said in 60 seconds or less. And then the phone call ends, and you don't hear from them again for several weeks. And you're not guaranteed to hear from them then. That's routinely when they allow phone calls. But if they are having disciplinary issues with their particular division, then you may not be allowed to get a phone call from them then, even if the disciplinary issue was not specifically with them, like that individual. If the division or if that particular ship has disciplinary issues, they're going to discipline everybody, basically. And I think that did happen for him for a while, because he's not a trouble starter, troublemaker. He stays out of everything. He's not trying to stay seen or heard. But my husband was significantly older than majority of the recruits that were there. So at the time that my husband enlisted, he was 25. I'm 33, by the way. I don't know if I said that in the last video, but I'm 33. Whole another video, whole another conversation. We'll probably mix that into the how we met video. So yes, there is an age difference. Sorry, that sounded really bad. My husband was 25 when he enlisted. He's 27 now, and I'm 33 now. So there wasn't that gap then. Basically, we're like 6.5 years of a gap apart. So anywho, um, so yeah, my husband at the time was 25, but majority of the recruits are basically fresh out of high school. So you have recruits that just turned 18, still got the confetti on them. Maybe a couple of them 19, but majority of them are significantly younger. So obviously the maturity level is a lot different. So unfortunately, my husband got punished along with everybody else, because that's how they do it. Kind of like in school, either everybody acts accordingly or everybody gets denied whatever, reward. So it was a very difficult, probably some of the most difficult times of my life during those 2 months. Psychologically, emotionally, you get to a point where you start feeling like that loved one is never going to come back. Um, every day that you wake up and realize that they are not there, and like they are not coming there, and you can't reach out to them and know if they're okay, it plays on your psyche really hard. Um, for any women who may be facing their loved one, whether it be their son, daughter, significant other, husband, wife, and they're going off to boot camp soon, just know that no call is a good call, if that makes sense. So if you don't get a call, then your recruit is good. Be concerned if you get a recall from your recruit and that call is not one of the calls or around one of the weeks that are scheduled for you to get a call. So if you don't hear anything, that is actually a really good thing. It means that the recruit is going along with the process. They're not sick, they're not infirm, they haven't been sent back, or kind of discharged back out of the Navy. So not hearing is good. And then as far as letters are concerned, that takes a while to come as well, because it's not just like, okay, they got there and then the next week you're getting letters. I believe it might have been a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks, closer to 2 weeks before I got anything. And I was just so thinking it was going to be a letter, and it wasn't an actual letter. It was like not one that he wrote. It was basically a letter printed, or document printed, where he was able to fill in, in his own handwriting, the dates of his graduation, and then also able to put on those documents the people that he wants to have to come to graduation, because they are limited to how many people they're allowed to have come to graduation. Depending on the graduation size will depend on how many people each recruit can allow to come or be invited. So for my husband's graduation, it was a large graduation, which I imagine most of them are, and the max people who were allowed to attend are 3 people, or were 3 people. I think sometimes it can go maybe up to 5 if it's a really small graduation, but for his, it was average, and average was large, and 3 people max. So you have to choose those 3 people wisely. And it wasn't easy for my husband at all, despite what my loving in-laws might believe. But it came down to obviously me. I mean, duh. So I was one of the 3, and then he struggled with trying to figure out who else he wanted to come to graduation, and that's another conversation for another video. As far as those certain relationships, but I told him to just keep it simple on himself, to just invite myself, obviously, which was never a question, and then his mom and dad, because they were the people who created life in him, that even allow him to live and breathe and walk and be at boot camp in the first place. So that kept it simple. Keep your feelings out of it, and just invite the people who deserve to see this moment and be proud of you because of the child that they created. So that's what basically happened. Um, Boot camp, I believe, ended up being August 30. Wait, no. Was it August 31st? Or September 1st? Or something like that. But it really is like 8 weeks of the process. And that's provided they pass everything they're supposed to, because they can be held back from the graduation date, or the original graduation date, if they haven't passed all of the particular tests that they have, whether that be physical training, swim tests, things like that. So that went on, and I flew up to Great Lakes. Graduation is a massive celebration. God bless everybody involved in graduation, who they do this every single Friday. Every single Friday. It's a big production. So you can tell people who are involved in graduation that is their job, preparing for the next Friday, and it is a hell of a job. So God bless them for doing all of that. If they don't do anything else for the other 4 days of the week, and they just do graduation, that's enough. So sorry, I'm gonna grab this water. Um, y'all don't judge. This is a Christmas cup. I'm not doing a good job showing it. Yeah, I got it on clearance for like at least 50% off, because I wouldn't have gotten it for anything less than that. But it had lemons in it. That's a whole nother conversation for another video. But I had a weight loss surgery beginning of November of 2018. So yeah, that video will be coming soon. I'll be doing that and letting you guys know what that process was about. So 2 seconds. Whew, I know that was longer than 2 seconds. I appreciate y'all bearing with me. Um, so after graduation, he then, for his particular rate, and most guys do, despite the rates that they are in, will have to go to basically school. And he had to go to a school, which I think just stands for apprentice school. But it depends on your rate where you go as far as your schooling is concerned. So some people, their A school or C school ends up being right there in Great Lakes, so they don't go anywhere. But depending on your rate, you may go other places. And for my husband's position as a MA, or a Master at Arms, the training or the apprentice school for any MAs in the Lisa Navy, I don't know if they do military police, and other um, armed forces, but for you being in the Navy and you being a Master at Arms, you are going to be stationed for your apprentice school in San Antonio, Texas. at Lackland Air Force Base. So yes, it is an Air Force Base, but this is a place for the Navy graduates to go and get their apprenticeship. I'm sure there's a reason for that. I just don't know what their reason is, and I don't need to know. So my husband had to go there for another 8 to 9 weeks, um, straight from boot camp. Like, he could not come home with me. I came there and everything. It was cool. But I think, yeah, because I don't even think so. The day he graduated, he was able to be on Liberty for several hours, and then had to be brought back to RTC, back to Great Lakes, where he had been for all those 8 weeks in boot camp. They can't sleep in a hotel with you or anything like that. And then the next morning for them, which actually wasn't like a night's sleep, they had to go ahead and go to the airport, I think around 12:30 at night, to go ahead and be catching a flight to San Antonio. And for them, it wasn't a straight flight they had planned. They had to catch a flight from Chicago to Houston, and then Houston to San Antonio. Um, and so I was able to meet him at the airport for that and go through the process of him waiting for his flights. At the time, we were going through all kind of hell and foolishness because hurricanes were really issue in 2017. So they had just had the huge hurricane to affect the Houston area at the time. Forgive me because I cannot think of that hurricane for the life of me. I know that I was in Florida, so we got hit with Irma. But right before Irma, um, I really feel bad that I don't know that. I feel bad. But the hurricane that has just hit Houston prior to that, um, they were still basically underwater to the point where the flight they were scheduled to catch, all of the Navy, graduates to go ahead and go to San Antonio, they weren't able to go straight to Houston like that. Like, they ended up having to reschedule their entire flight travel arrangement period, and that caused them to not catch a flight out at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning like they were supposed to. They ended up having to catch a flight like later on that evening. Um, so almost 12 hours or over 12 hours later, they were stuck in the airport, having to just make do, whether it was walking around, whether it was eating, whether it was sleeping, whatever they were doing. But they could not go back to Great Lakes. They could not go get a hotel. They literally had to camp out in the airport. And I hadn't even booked the flight home because I was trying to stay with him as long as possible. So before we knew that they were going to have the flight issues because of the hurricane in Houston, I knew his flight was supposed to leave at a particular time. So I booked my flight to leave like after his flight. Like, I wanted to see him off. I didn't want it to be the other way around. And then it still ended up being the other way around because I had booked my flight. I couldn't change my flight. We didn't know his flight was going to get changed. So he ended up being in O'Hare hours and hours and hours after my flight had already left, which I was really hurt about. So, but again, we didn't know that was going to happen once we both had gotten to the airport. There was no way for me to change my flight. So yeah, he was gone for another 2 months, and then when it was time for, they had a much smaller graduation for completing a school in San Antonio, Texas. But your girl, that's my baby, and I love him. And I flew to San Antonio to see him there as well, as, in my opinion, what a good wife is supposed to do. My husband has a significant amount of family, but that he was able to see a lot of while he was in Great Lakes, because after graduation, we had all planned a luncheon for him to be able to meet up with family and friends who were obviously not able to come to graduation due to the limitations on that. But, we knew basically nobody was going to be able to come from my side or his side to San Antonio. So if I wasn't there for him, nobody was going to be there for him. And nobody being there for him is never going to be an option. Like, I don't care what goes on, where he has to go, what he has to do. Wherever he goes, we go, my buddy. So, so that happened, but this time, they were able to go to their respective homes. And then when they were scheduled, excuse me, when they were leaving San Antonio, they were also leaving with their papers, so to speak. And those papers basically stated where they were going to be stationed. Um, After apprentice school, like their actual station. So we got stationed. He had told me this a couple weeks prior to, because also while you're in A school, you can communicate with your sailor. They're no longer recruit ops at the point, so you can communicate with your sailor. Y'all can call each other every day. Y'all can talk or whatever. Y'all can, video FaceTime. Y'all can do what anybody can do at long distance at that point. Almost anything. I mean, you don't want to do like, sorry, I feel like I have hair on my face, and it's very possible because when my husband kisses me goodbye to go to work, or kisses me, period, I guess, there'll be hair, like a little stray hair, probably from his mustache, that will be on my lip, and I fight to find it. Right, I still can't find it, but apparently it's off my lip. So, um, you're able to communicate with your sailor at that point. So he was able to tell me they got their papers maybe a week or two before A school was over to know when they were going to be assigned to. And then they also announced it at the A school graduation ceremony. So we got stationed to Virginia for 3 years, and that's where we are currently. We are a year down and some change, and or a year in and some change, I guess is better said. And we, are just really taking it day by day, and hoping that 3 years gets here sooner than later. Um, because we're not. This is the first time we've both been somewhere where neither one of us have been before, nor are we from. So these are unfamiliar surroundings for both of us. And although we've been here over a year and we know everywhere we need to go and we know how to get there, we're not still using ways to get to the grocery store anymore. It still is unfamiliar territory. We don't have family here, like, at all, like no family. We have no friends here, like, at all. Anybody who he associates himself with are people at work, and once he leaves work, that's it. There is no going to hang out with anybody, going out to dinner with anybody, going over anybody's houses, going to lunch, nothing. Literally, it's the three of us. Um, so that's kind of good and difficult at the same time. So, you know, we say often, like, we don't live here, we stay here, you know. Um, so, yeah, upon graduation from San Antonio, um, basically your sailor is able to come home for a couple of weeks until um sorry, I just drew a blank. Yes, they're able to come home for a couple of weeks, and on the papers that they receive, it says their report date where they need to be, where they're supposed to go. So for us, it was like mid-November. He, I think, graduated October 31st, so he did have about 2 weeks at home. And in that time coming home, yes, you come home, you relax, you reacquaint with your sailor for whatever that relationship with your sailor is. But also, your sailor needs to be preparing, getting his affairs in order, getting in touch with, depending on the living situation, because if your sailor was your son or daughter, obviously they're not probably moving a whole home. But for sailors who are married, they need to go ahead and make the appropriate connections and contacts with making sure that they have their living arrangement, whether that's an apartment or a house, having everything shipped. So they need to set all that up within those 2 weeks. Um, and then you transition to where you're supposed to be. For us, we did that, went through all what we needed to go through, and then we got here. He had to report, and then once he was able to report, they gave him, I believe, 10 days house hunting leave, which of course, is, when you're in the military, you're salaried basically. There is no, you know, there's leave time, but there is no hourly rate, is what I'm trying to say. So the 10 days house hunting leave, of course you're getting full pay during that time, but those 10 days house hunting leave is exactly for what it says it's for. It's for house hunting. So within those 10 days, the Navy expects for you to have found wherever you're going to stay, whether that be an apartment or a house, or if you decide that you're going to stay on base, and then get acquainted and set up within that time frame. Because when you move, unless you're moving here where you have friends or family already where you're moving to just by chance, you're going to be in a hotel until you get a place to live. And we didn't know any better at first, so we ended up getting like a hotel oceanfront the night we got here, but we were so exhausted from the drive, we didn't give a damn. We ended up overpaying, staying in a Holiday Inn, and it was oceanfront because we didn't know where we were any different from where we were supposed to be. So I think we paid like $130 something a night. Yeah, we might even pay for 2 nights, but we were supposed to have gotten lodging through the Navy Lodge or the Gateway Inn, which are the hotels that the Navy is affiliated with that we didn't really know. So for those couple of nights, 1 or 2 nights that we stayed at Holiday Inn, we were not compensated for. But the reason why they want you to stay at the Navy Lodge is because that those are who they are affiliated with, and then they're able to basically they will reimburse you for staying there. But if you decide to stay at a hotel that they're not affiliated with, then that is at your own expense. Um, so that happened. We ended up finding a place. It had probably been about a week for us before we found a place, maybe about 6 days. We were eager. The Navy Lodge wasn't the worst experience in the world. It really wasn't. We were just tired of coming home to a hotel, and obviously in a hotel you can never really get comfortable. Um, so it was a whole lot of, having to unpack every single thing, having to pack that back up. Um, our life was in our car because even though we had the Navy move our stuff, there's still a significant amount of stuff you're going to need to bring with you on your own transportation in order to live out and off of for at least a couple of weeks before your stuff is actually delivered to wherever you're going to live. And if it takes you the full 10 days um, before you can find a place, you would have already pre-scheduled the date to have your stuff delivered. So you have to account for all of that. You need clothes, you need toiletries, you need certain things for that time frame until you find a place and until you get the rest of your stuff. So you're not able to bring your entire closet with you. Um, so we got a place, and we got a place a couple cities away from where my husband's actually stationed. But the way they have it in the area that we live in, each city's probably about 20, 30 minutes away from each other. So it's the norm for people to commute from one city to another in their daily commute, just going to work. So that's the norm in this area. Um, so now that he's been stationed for 3 years, and obviously we're here with him every day. Being an MA still sucks as far as time is concerned because, unlike many and plenty other rates, he's never off. Basically, anytime that he's off, he's really on liberty, which means he can be called at any given time to come into work. And that's it, any given time, any given day for anything. So, anytime there is any sort of natural disaster take place, which has happened since we've been here as far as weather, anytime there's any sort of security breach or security alert take place, high alert, he has to be there. It doesn't matter whether or not he hasn't had days off, it doesn't matter whether or not he is supposed to be off on that particular day. If they call you and you are the military police to come in, you're coming in, and you're coming in for as long as it takes to be in straight. So his normal schedule is a 12-hour shift, but in actuality, it's like a 14-hour shift. Like it's from, you know, midnight to 12 noon. In actuality, you need to be there around 11:30, 11:45. And although 12 noon is supposed to be your 12-hour shift, don't be surprised if you don't leave there until about 1:30 p.m. basically. So really about 14 hours. And then you come home, and then you need to be prepared. Let's say if you you're working 12 to 12 and you didn't get off until like 1:15, 1:30. Okay, cool. You go home, you better go ahead and take you a shower and go to bed, because guess what? When 12 midnight comes again, you are going to be on your way to work. Or excuse me, 11 comes again, 11 p.m. comes. You're going to go ahead and be on your way to work and be there at midnight again. So there's not even, you have to work for 14 hours, but you barely have an 8 hour window before you have to be back to work again. So you better use the time wisely. There is no, it's not equal. There's not much downtime that you get to have when you are in this particular rate, whether it be from day to day. Um, there's not like any significant vacation that you're going to be able to have or take, because with this particular rate, you're not allowed to even go outside of so many miles of where you're stationed, even for the days that you are off. You can put in leave and go, and if that's approved, you can go ahead and go during that time. But if you want to be on leave, let's say you put in leave for days that you are scheduled to work and they get approved, and then you have 2 days that follow that you are scheduled to be off. So you figure, okay, I'm just going to put in 3 days worth of leave for the 3 days that I have to work. And then let's say Saturday and Sunday I'm scheduled, this is just hypothetical, Saturday and Sunday I'm already off, so I'm good, I'll be on leave for those days. Well, excuse me, I'm good. I'm already off for those days, so I really only have to use my leave for Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Yeah, not really. So, if you don't go ahead and attach some more leave to that, come Saturday and Sunday, if they need you, I don't care if you're in California, they expect for you to be there. Because on the days that you are off and those days have not been approved by leave, then they call you, they're expecting you to come. And from what my husband's told me, they're basically doing that to a lot of people to make sure that they're staying within the city limits that they're supposed to, for the people who have not scheduled those days off. So if you want to be off Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, even though Saturday and Sunday are days that you would have been off already, then you have to put in leave for those days as well. Like, you have to utilize your leave on your off days if you want to have those days truly off and not get a call to come in. Otherwise, you can be called to come in and they expect you to come in. So if you were going to be off for Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, that better have been your time that you were in California, because on Saturday you're expected to be back within your jurisdiction of being able to show up to work. And if you're not, you are getting written up. And after so many write-ups, and depending on what the write-up is even for, you'll be on your way to Captain's Mass. And Captain's Mass is basically like going to court for whatever your offense is, and the penalties vary, but it is a penalty that you're going to be able to feel, so to speak. Um, so um, I do not work, and that was really difficult for me because obviously, in order for us to make this move here, I had to quit my job. And I, again, was a single mother prior to my husband and I getting together and getting married. So all I ever knew was work from the age of 15, 16 years old. Like, I didn't know what not working was even before I became a mother. So one of the reasons why I don't work is, well, let me do this. The main reason why I don't work is because my husband wants to be the one to provide for us. And I know there'll be a lot of controversy with that, and a lot of people feel differently. And why does he have to be the one to provide? And why is it a situation where you can provide for yourself? And why do you have to subject yourself to losing your independence? To each his own. 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 Um, I'm not here to judge anybody who decides to work when their husband is in the military. I'm not here to judge anybody who doesn't decide to work with who their husband is in the military. It depends on your financial situation, how many mouths you have to feed at your house. Forgive me, I'm just looking at myself and I see my hair is out of pocket. The hair is just out of pocket, period, at this point. I don't even know why I'm trying. But to each his own. But I know for our personal belief system and our values, my husband stated that he wanted to be able to provide for his family. And so I basically decided that I would be willing to honor that to see how it goes. And it is not easy living off one income by any means. Trying to support three people, one of those people is a preteen. So, need I say more? Um, but we make it work because the other reason for that is because we have to. We are a one car household, and the way his schedule is set up as an MA and the hours that the MA, being an MA, demands, in conjunction with our kid going to school and the hours that those demand, I can't go anywhere and really have a job because I'm always on call to drop off or pick up somebody at the drop of a dime. Um, we explored whether or not I could try to squeeze in a part-time job between certain hours, but that wasn't happening either because, again, the way the military, will just speak specifically the Navy, specifically his rate is concerned, even on the days that are supposed to be off and the times that are supposed to be off, they will switch things up from one day to the next, from one shift to the next, and there's nothing you can do about it but abide by it. And that didn't allow for me to be able to take on a job anywhere consistently before I had to be somewhere else to pick up somebody else. And again, we don't have any friends or any family here, so all we have is all we have. So until we get a second vehicle, that unfortunately is just not an option. We have to buckle down and bear it. And we've been doing it for over a year now. Again, it hasn't not been easy at all, but we pay our primary bills, and primary bills being the ones we can't afford to not pay. So rent, the car note, lights, um, those primary bills that if we don't do this, we don't have anywhere to live or any means to get to and from work. And then we start, obviously chipping away at everything else based upon priority. Um, so, and of course, the Navy does issue what they call BAH, which is a housing allotment to married couples. And that's another conversation for another video that I may elaborate on, I may not, but I may. But yeah, so we receive that as a part of his income as well, but it's still very difficult because the cost of living here is significantly higher than where we come from, like almost double. So for the housing allotment that we receive, the housing allotment is utilized and eaten up. It's not a situation where we are paying the rent and pocketing a few $100s out of it a month. We're not. And maybe some people are. I know people have different living arrangements. To each his own, however they get it, however they hustle. I just know for us, that's not the case. So to anyone who is a Navy wife, my hat is off to you. It's more than I ever anticipated it to be. Even from one day to the next, like I still miss my husband every day that he goes to work. And typically I do drop him to work and pick him up. But on the weekends, because our kid is out of school, if it's a weekend that he has to work, then I just go ahead and allow him to take the car just to save on gas. And the wear and tear on our vehicle because it is the only car that we have. And it is a situation where our car has broken down before. It actually happened late last year, and it was detrimental because we had to Uber everywhere, and it was detrimental. It was expensive to repair. It was expensive in an Uber. With the distance that we travel everywhere, or every day, having to go to and from, it was expensive all around. It was an extra $500 between Ubers and the repairs that we did not anticipate and we didn't have. And it took us several months. Like we're just now starting to recover a little bit from that particular repair. So we try not to go anywhere that we don't have to go, just for the purposes of trying to give our car a break because we don't have the newest, nicest car, but the car is as reliable as it possibly could be. It's a Toyota, and we're very, very grateful for it. So we try to make sure we stay on top of those oil changes and take care of it because you got to take care of what's taking care of you. So that's your car and your family. Um, so yeah, that is me kind of explaining me being a Navy wife. There are some other elements of things that went on during the course of the time that we got married to the time that we've enlisted in the Navy and throughout that process up until date. But that's going to be another video for sure because this video I did not expect for it to be over an hour, but it has been. And I'm just grateful that I have someone who truly loves me for who I am, as my size, the age gap. Um, because I don't know if you knew it or not, I'm plus size, a little cushion for the cushion. My husband is not plus size, and there's nothing against larger men. Nothing against larger men, to each his own. Those men are capable of loving and deserve to be loved as well. But my husband is very fit, and has always been very fit just by, genetic composition. And I've always been plus size just by genetic composition and by eating. But some people, obviously by genetic composition, have higher metabolism, so they can eat whatever they want and burn it off. I smell whatever I want and gain 10 pounds. So I'm very grateful for him. I have a husband who loves me to life, isn't cheating on me, isn't beating on me, um, takes pride in me, doesn't have a problem telling anybody about me, and how much he loves me, doesn't have a problem putting anybody in their place who might go ahead and have questions or commentary that's unsolicited. He takes pride in providing for myself and our daughter, and he does it without complaint every day. His thing has always been, we motivate him to be a better person, and I tell him the same. He motivates me to want to be a better person. He's motivated me to want to do this, and although he probably won't be as a part of it as I will, I wanted to do something that would allow me to tell the world about the experiences, the struggles, the triumphs, life that we have, because you just never know who's out there who may be experiencing what you're experiencing. It doesn't feel like there's anybody out there who quite gets it the way they're going through it. And I know that's how I felt in the past and even recently. So I decided to put my fears aside, decided to stop making excuses, decided to be like, you know what? Well, I'm ugly, my flaws this, my flaws that. I'm not wearing any makeup right now. You may get videos with makeup. You may continue to get videos without makeup. You may get those videos back with the satin bonnet. I was kind of looking to see if I could find it. I don't know where it is, but it's not far. The Forever Satin Bonnet, yeah. I took these, I had in pigtails. I took them out for y'all in the video right before I hit the play button. So this is a satin bonnet. Get familiar with it. I'm probably going to name it, and you'll probably see it next video. So this is kind of how to carry on my daily life. I wear sweats and leggings everywhere. Wasn't something I anticipated. Isn't something I'm in love with. But be it that I do more traveling than anything, when I'm out and grocery shopping, I don't necessarily feel the need to go ahead and put on all these different razzle dazzle clothes, and especially with the shift my husband does actually work, which is halfway through the night basically. I don't even really have the opportunity during the day to wear something nice and have him appreciate it. Not because he doesn't appreciate it, but just simply because it's the middle of the night. So, um, yeah, I just wanted to get on here and give you guys a little bit more about me as a Navy wife, because that is one of my biggest responsibilities in life at this time and one of my biggest prides. Is that something I can say? Well, let's just say one of my biggest joys. And obviously, the other one, above all, is being a mom. So I'll probably go into my story of becoming a mom in another video. But until then, love you guys. Thank you for tuning in. If you are still here at an hour and 13 minutes, going on 14 minutes, I love you to life for that. Thanks again. Hit the like button, hit subscribe. Don't dislike my video, just don't watch it. Or just like stop it and go on to somebody else's video, because dislikes hurt my feelings. And I didn't ask that. I didn't dislike your video. I don't even know if you upload videos, but don't listen to dislike my video, because I put a lot of time and effort into this, and I really want to love everybody who comes across this video. So don't do it, because then I'm going to cry. And I don't think y'all want me to cry. I hope you don't want me to cry. I don't want to cry. I'll probably be crying on one of these videos after a while. I'm sure I will, especially with particular topics. So love you guys, oodles and noodles. And I will see you next time. And peace.